The unexpected war. In the year 2040, Earth was a peaceful place. Humans lived their lives, going to work, spending time with family, and dreaming of a bright future. Little did they know, a storm was coming, a storm that would change everything. On a bright morning, a strange object appeared in the sky. It was a spaceship, and it was not from Earth. The ship glimmered like a star as it descended, landing softly in a wide open field near a small town. Curious people gathered around, pointing and whispering. Some took out their phones to record the event, while others felt fear creeping into their hearts. The door of the spaceship slowly opened with a hiss, a ramp descended, and a figure stepped out. It was Princess Zafira, a being from the distant planet of Niloria. She was tall, with skin that shimmered like the ocean under the sun and hair that flowed like silver silk. She wore a flowing dress made of bright colors, reflecting her vibrant personality. "People of Earth," she called out, her voice clear and strong. "I come in peace. I wish to learn about your world and share my culture with you." The crowd was silent at first, then a few brave souls clapped and cheered. Zafira smiled, feeling welcomed. She walked closer, and soon she was surrounded by excited humans asking questions about her home. One young man named Mark stepped forward. He was tall and had warm brown eyes. "Welcome, Princess Zafira. We are glad to have you here. I can show you around." Zafira's heart warmed at his kindness. "Thank you, Mark. I would like that very much." As they walked together, Mark shared stories of Earth's history, culture, and technology. Zafira listened with wide eyes, fascinated by everything. In return, she spoke of her planet's beautiful landscapes, advanced technology, and unique traditions. They felt a strong connection growing between them, one that neither of them expected. Days passed, and Zafira became a regular part of the town. She taught the children about Niloria, sharing tales of her people and their peaceful ways. Mark often joined her, helping her understand Earth customs. They laughed, shared meals, and grew closer with each passing moment. It was a magical time, full of hope and joy. But in the shadows, danger lurked. Not everyone was pleased with the alien princess's arrival. A powerful organization called the Global Defense Alliance, GDA, viewed her presence as a threat. They believed that if the Nilorians were advanced enough to travel across the galaxy, they might have hidden motives. Fear spread among the leaders, and they began plotting against Zafira. Meanwhile, Mark and Zafira enjoyed their time together, unaware of the plans brewing behind closed doors. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mark took Zafira to a hilltop to watch the stars. "Do you miss your home?" he asked gently. Zafira sighed, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Sometimes, but I feel happy here with you. You make me feel safe." Just then, a loud noise broke the peaceful moment. The ground shook, and they turned to see military trucks rolling into the field, lights flashing and engines roaring. Soldiers jumped out, weapons drawn. "Princess Zafira, you are under arrest," shouted a commander, his voice filled with authority. "You are a threat to humanity." "What? No, I come in peace," Zafira cried, confusion and fear in her eyes. Mark stepped in front of her, his heart racing. "Wait, she hasn't done anything wrong. She is our friend." But the soldiers advanced, ignoring Mark's plea. The commander barked orders, and the troops closed in on Zafira. Mark felt a surge of anger. He couldn't let this happen. "Stop, you don't understand," he shouted, trying to reason with them. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Zafira's eyes flashed with power. "I will not be taken. I came here to unite our worlds, not to be treated like a criminal." With a wave of her hand, she created a barrier of shimmering light, pushing the soldiers back. They stumbled, shocked by her sudden strength. The soldiers quickly regrouped, preparing to attack. "Run, Zafira. Get to your ship," Mark yelled, his heart pounding. The princess hesitated but nodded, her instincts kicking in. She turned and sprinted toward her spaceship, her feet barely touching the ground. Mark followed closely behind, determined to protect her. As they reached the ship, Zafira activated the door. "Get inside," she urged. Just then, a soldier fired a warning shot. The bullet whizzed past Mark, narrowly missing him. The sound of gunfire echoed in the night, shattering the calm. "Go now," Mark shouted, pushing her inside. Zafira hesitated, her heart heavy, but she knew she had to escape. As she entered the ship, she felt a surge of anger and betrayal. "They don't understand. I wanted to help them." Mark looked back at the advancing soldiers. "We can still fix this. We can make them understand." But Zafira knew the truth. The peaceful arrival she had dreamed of had turned into an unexpected war. She could no longer trust the humans. The warmth of love had turned to cold betrayal, and she was now alone against a world that saw her as a threat. With determination, she began to prepare her ship for takeoff. She would return to Nyloria and gather her people. Earth would see her power, and they would understand the consequences of their actions. In that moment, a decision was made. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about vengeance. And the war had just begun. The gathering storm. Princess Zafira sat alone in the cockpit of her spaceship, her heart heavy with anger and sadness. Outside, the world of Earth seemed peaceful, but within her, a storm brewed. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind. The soldiers, the betrayal, and the feeling of helplessness. It all weighed on her. As she looked out at the stars, memories of her home, Nyloria, flooded back. The lush green valleys, the shining blue rivers, and the warmth of her family surrounded her like a comforting blanket. But now those memories felt distant and unreachable. She had come to Earth with hope, and now she felt like a stranger in a hostile land. Determined to protect her home and her people, Zafira activated the communication system in her ship, calling all Nylorian ships. "I need immediate assistance." Her voice was firm, but deep down, she felt a flicker of doubt. Would her people listen? Would they come to her aid? Within moments, a familiar voice crackled through the speakers. "Princess Zafira, this is Captain Theros. We hear your call. What is happening?" Zafira took a deep breath. "Captain, I have been betrayed by the humans. They see me as a threat and are preparing to attack. I need your help to gather our fleet. We must return to Earth and show them our power." "Understood, Princess. We will assemble the fleet and head to your location," Captain Theros replied, his voice steady. "But are you sure this is the right course of action? You may provoke them further." Zafira clenched her fists, frustration boiling within her. "They have already chosen their path by attacking me. If they will not accept peace, then we must defend ourselves." As she ended the transmission, a small spark of determination ignited within her. She had to be strong for her people, and if that meant waging war, then so be it. But in her heart, she still hoped for peace. She wanted to find a way to resolve the conflict without further bloodshed. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Mark was frantic. He had witnessed the chaos at the field and felt the weight of the betrayal. The government was on high alert, and news reports flooded the airwaves with warnings about the alien princess. "The alien princess is a danger to humanity," they declared. "Prepare for an invasion." Mark knew this wasn't true. Zafira was not a monster. She was a kind and gentle being who wanted to help. He had to find a way to reach her and convince the world of her true intentions. He hurried to the Global Defense Alliance headquarters, determined to speak with the leaders. "Please, you have to listen. Princess Zafira is not our enemy. She only wants peace." The room was filled with stern-faced officials. One of them, General Roberts, slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. This alien could destroy us all. We cannot risk our safety based on your feelings." Mark felt his heart sink. "But she is our ally. We can work together. If you treat her as a threat, you will create a war." General Roberts shook his head. The princess is already gathering her fleet. If we do not act quickly, we may face a full-scale attack. We must prepare our defenses. Mark realized he had little time. He turned and rushed out of the building, searching for a way to reach Sci-Fi before it was too late. He knew he needed to find a way to contact her, to warn her of the humans' plans. Back on her ship, Sci-Fi felt a surge of energy as the Nylorian fleet assembled nearby. Ships with shimmering hulls and bright lights surrounded her. Captain Theros stood at the helm of the flagship, ready for action. "Princess, we are prepared to follow your orders," he said. "What is our course of action?" Sci-Fi took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "We will approach Earth, but we will not attack unless provoked. I want to send a message, a warning that we are here to defend ourselves." As the fleet moved toward Earth, Sci-Fi felt a mix of fear and determination. She wanted to protect her people, but she also wanted to reach Mark and convince him to help her bridge the gap between their worlds. Meanwhile, Mark had managed to contact a friend in the media. "You have to help me get a message to the princess. She needs to know the truth." His friend looked skeptical, but agreed to help. "I'll do what I can. But time is running out, Mark. You need to hurry." As the hours passed, Sci-Fi and her fleet approached the blue planet. The stars twinkled above, but the tension was palpable. She could feel the weight of her decision. War would bring destruction, and many innocent lives would be lost. Yet, if she did nothing, she risked the annihilation of her own people. "Prepare to send our message," Sci-Fi commanded, her voice steady despite the fear inside. "We want peace, but we will defend ourselves." The ships glowed brightly as they sent a transmission to Earth, a warning for humanity to listen. As the message traveled through space, Sci-Fi held her breath, hoping that Mark would receive it and understand the gravity of the situation. Back on Earth, Mark and his friend worked tirelessly to get the message out. He knew they had to act quickly. Time was running out, and the fear of war loomed over them all. As the fleet neared Earth, Sci-Fi gazed out at the planet she had come to love. She had hoped for friendship and understanding, but now faced the reality of war. The storm was gathering, and there was no turning back. In the hearts of both the princess and Mark, a flicker of hope remained. They wanted to find a way to avoid the conflict, to prove that peace was still possible. But the clock was ticking, and the unexpected war was about to begin. The first strike. The atmosphere in Princess Sci-Fi's flagship was tense. The Nylorian fleet hovered silently in the darkness of space, their sleek ships shimmering like stars. Sci-Fi stood at the command center, her heart racing. She had sent a message to Earth, but now she wondered if anyone would listen. "Princess, we are approaching the Earth's atmosphere," Captain Theros announced. "What are your orders?" Sci-Fi took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her responsibility. "We will send one more message. We must give them a chance to respond before we take any action. Prepare the communication array." As the crew began their preparations, Sci-Fi thought about Mark. He had shown her kindness and friendship. She hoped he would understand her intentions and be able to convince the humans to stand down. Meanwhile, on Earth, the tension was palpable. The Global Defense Alliance had mobilized their forces, preparing for what they believed would be a full-scale invasion. News reports filled the airwaves with warnings, painting Sci-Fi as a dangerous enemy. Mark rushed through the streets, determined to reach the media station before it was too late. He knew that the people needed to hear the truth about the princess and the situation. He couldn't let fear guide their actions. As he arrived, he saw crowds gathering, anxiously waiting for updates. "Please, you have to let me speak," Mark shouted to the reporters. "Princess Sci-Fi is not our enemy. She wants peace. You must tell the world." One of the reporters looked skeptical, but nodded. "If you have something to say, make it quick. The situation is escalating." Mark stepped forward, the cameras trained on him. "The alien princess came to Earth in peace. She has been betrayed, and now we are about to face a war that could destroy us all." We need to show her that we want to work together, not fight." The crowd listened, a mixture of fear and curiosity on their faces. "If we don't act quickly," he continued, "more lives will be lost, and we will be the ones responsible for it." As Mark spoke, a buzz of activity erupted around him. The government had made its decision. They would respond to Zephyra's presence with force. Back in space, Zephyra's flagship was ready. The message was set, and her heart raced as she thought of the possible consequences. "Open a channel," she commanded. The screen flickered to life, and Zephyra took a moment to collect her thoughts. "People of Earth, I am Princess Zephyra of Nyloria. I come in peace. We do not wish to fight, but we will defend our home. Please listen to my warning." Before she could finish, alarms blared across the ship. Incoming projectiles. A crew member shouted, panic in their voice. "What?" Zephyra gasped. "Who fired?" "Earth's defense systems. They're attacking." Captain Theros replied, his face pale. "We need to respond." "No. Hold fire," Zephyra commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We cannot strike back. That is not who we are." But before they could act, explosions erupted around them as missiles struck the Nylorian ships. The force rocked the flagship, sending crew members tumbling. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered as damage reports flooded in. "Casualties on Deck 3. Someone shouted, "We need to stabilize the ship." Zephyra's heart sank as she realized the humans had chosen war. "Divert all power to shields," she ordered, trying to keep her voice calm. "We must protect the fleet." As the crew worked furiously to manage the damage, Zephyra felt her resolve hardening. She could not allow her people to suffer because of misunderstanding and fear. "Prepare for emergency evasive maneuvers. We will not fight, but we will not be destroyed either." Meanwhile, on Earth, Mark watched the chaos unfold on live television. His heart raced as he saw the destruction being unleashed upon the alien ships. "No," he shouted, feeling powerless. "This is not how it was meant to go." He turned to the reporters, desperate to reach them. "We have to stop this. We have to show the world that we can find peace." The crowd murmured, torn between fear of the aliens and Mark's passionate plea. "Please," he implored, "help me get a message to Princess Zephyra. We have to find a way to communicate." As the battle raged on in space, Zephyra and her crew worked tirelessly to fend off the attacks. She could see Earth in the distance, its beauty now marred by the flames of conflict. Her heart ached at the thought of the destruction they were causing, and she knew she had to act quickly. "Open a channel to Earth again," she commanded. The crew complied, and soon her image appeared on every screen across the planet. "People of Earth," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency, "stop this madness. I am not your enemy. I have come to seek peace. We do not wish for war. If you continue to attack, we will be forced to defend ourselves, and lives will be lost." As she spoke, she saw a flicker of hope in the eyes of some viewers. Maybe there was still a chance, but she could not wait any longer. "Mark, if you can hear me, please respond. We need you now." Back on Earth, Mark's heart raced as he heard her voice. He grabbed the nearest microphone. "Princess Zephyra, I'm here. We can still fix this." The people around him looked hopeful, their eyes locked on the screens. "We can show the world that peace is possible," he shouted, trying to rally them. But as the battle continued, time was running out. Both sides needed to find a way to break the cycle of violence. The unexpected war had begun, and it threatened to engulf them all. With a plan in motion, Mark quickly organized the press conference, calling in reporters and influential leaders. The crowd gathered, whispers of curiosity filling the air. Mark stood in front of the cameras, his heart racing. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I have gathered you here today to introduce a very special guest. This is Princess Zephyra of Nyloria, and she is not our enemy. She comes in peace and seeks to end this war before it can begin." The reporters looked skeptical but intrigued. Saphira stepped forward, her regal presence commanding attention. People of Earth, I come to you as a friend, not a foe. I do not wish for war. My people have suffered betrayal, but I believe we can find a way to coexist peacefully. The crowd murmured, uncertainty mixing with hope. Mark felt a surge of determination. This is our chance, he whispered to Saphira. We can convince them. As Saphira spoke, Mark watched the crowd. Some were still afraid, but others were beginning to listen. We are not so different, she continued. We both desire peace, safety, and a future for our people. Let us work together to avoid this conflict. Just then, an unexpected voice broke through the crowd. Why should we trust you? A man shouted. Your kind attacked us first. Saphira's heart sank. It was a misunderstanding, she replied, her voice calm. We were responding to fear, not aggression. If we can come together, we can build a future where both our worlds can thrive. Mark stepped forward, his voice rising above the murmurs. Please, everyone, this is our chance to change the future. We can end the cycle of violence right now. Let's show the world that we can choose peace over war. Slowly, the crowd began to nod, understanding dawning in their eyes. The fear was still there, but so was hope. Together, Saphira and Mark began to change the narrative. As they continued speaking, both sides were beginning to listen, but the clock was ticking. Would it be enough to prevent the impending war, or was the cycle of violence already set in motion? The fate of both their worlds hung in the balance, and they had to act fast before it was too late. Tides of war. The air crackled with tension as Princess Saphira and Mark faced the crowd. A mixture of hope and skepticism filled the atmosphere. After their initial speeches, questions poured in from the reporters, each more aggressive than the last. Why should we trust an alien? One reporter shouted. You've attacked our ships. How can we believe you come in peace? Saphira stood tall, her heart pounding. I understand your fear. My people were betrayed, and we reacted in anger. But I stand here today to assure you that we do not want war. We want to find a solution together. Mark stepped forward, his voice firm. I have seen the truth of her intentions. We must give peace a chance. We can change the fate of our worlds if we unite against the real threats. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty. Saphira could feel their doubts but also sensed a glimmer of hope. Let us show you that we can coexist, she urged. Instead of fighting, let us work together to uncover the truth behind the betrayal. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed in the distance, shaking the ground beneath them. Panic erupted in the crowd, and people began to scream and run in all directions. Mark turned to Saphira, his eyes wide with fear. What was that? I don't know, she replied, her heart racing. We need to find out. Without hesitation, they rushed toward the source of the explosion, joined by a few brave reporters and Mark's friends. As they neared the edge of the city, the sight that met their eyes was horrifying. A group of armed soldiers stood at the ready, weapons drawn, and behind them lay the wreckage of an Ilorian ship. They've attacked us again, one of the soldiers yelled, pointing at the debris. We can't trust them. They're here to invade. No, Mark shouted, stepping forward. This was not Princess Saphira's doing. We were just about to find a way to prevent war. The soldiers hesitated, glancing at each other in confusion. Saphira could see the fear in their eyes. Please, listen to us, she pleaded, stepping closer. We are not here to fight. We come in peace. Suddenly, the ground shook again as another explosion erupted nearby, this time even closer. Saphira felt the panic rise within her. This can't be happening, she whispered. Mark looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. We need to protect the people and figure out who is really behind this. It's not us. Just then, a voice rang out from the shadows. How naive you are. A tall figure stepped forward, his face obscured by a dark helmet. You think you can stop the inevitable. Saphira's heart sank. You're one of them, the ones who betrayed us. Yes, he sneered, And now you will all pay for your trust in an alien princess." Before they could react, the figure waved his hand, and the soldiers opened fire on the Nilorian ship, their weapons blazing. Mark instinctively pushed Sapphira to the ground as bullets flew overhead. "We need to get out of here," he shouted. "Not without my people." Sapphira yelled back, anger flaring within her. "They don't deserve this." With newfound resolve, Sapphira sprang to her feet, summoning her energy. A brilliant light enveloped her as she focused on protecting her crew and the humans nearby. A shimmering shield appeared, deflecting the incoming fire. Mark stared in awe as Sapphira's powers ignited around her. "You can do this," he encouraged, gripping her shoulder. "We can fight together." The soldiers hesitated, their fear evident. "Stand down," Mark shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. "We are not the enemy. We must unite against this real threat." Slowly, some soldiers lowered their weapons, confusion etched on their faces. The figure in the dark helmet, however, was not deterred. "You will regret this, princess," he hissed, before signaling for the remaining soldiers to withdraw. "The war has only just begun." As the soldiers retreated, Mark turned to Sapphira, concern etched on his face. "What do we do now?" "They'll come back with more firepower." Sapphira's gaze hardened. "We need to gather my people and strategize. We cannot let them divide us." The reporters, now witnessing the unfolding events, began documenting everything. The fear in their eyes was palpable, but Sapphira sensed a change. They were beginning to see the truth. "This is our chance to show them who the real enemy is," she said, her voice steady. "We must spread the word," Mark added, his determination unwavering. "If we can unite both our people against this threat, we can end this war before it truly begins." As they worked together, gathering support and information, they knew time was running out. The enemy was out there, plotting their next move, and they had to be ready. The two unlikely allies stood at the precipice of war, their fate intertwined. The true battle was not just for their worlds, but for the trust of their people. Would they find a way to unite against the darkness, or would the tides of war consume them all? The clock was ticking, and they had to act quickly. The gathering storm. The city buzzed with tension as Sapphira and Mark raced against time. Reports of the attack spread like wildfire, igniting fear and anger among both humans and Nilorians. Sapphira knew they had to act fast to turn the tide of public opinion. "We need a plan," Mark said, pacing in the makeshift command center they had set up in an abandoned building. The walls were plastered with maps and notes, a visual chaos of information that mirrored their situation. "People are scared. We have to show them we can fight together." Sapphira nodded, her brow furrowed. "We must hold a meeting. A united front will help reassure everyone that we are not enemies. We can show them we are allies." Mark paused, looking around at the gathered soldiers and reporters. "But how do we convince them? Some still see you as a threat." "We start with the truth," she replied, her voice steady. "We'll share what we know about the betrayal and the true enemy behind the attacks." As they discussed their strategy, the door burst open, and a group of Nilorian soldiers stormed in. "Your Highness," one of them shouted, urgency in his voice. "We've received reports of more attacks near the outskirts of the city. We must act quickly." Sapphira's heart sank. "What kind of attacks?" "Human civilians are being targeted. They believe they are traitors for siding with you. It's chaos out there." The soldiers' eyes were wide with fear. Mark clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "We can't let this escalate. If we don't stop it now, it could lead to a full-scale war." "We need to go to the civilians," Sapphira said, determination flooding her veins. "They need to see we are on their side, not the enemy." Mark nodded, his gaze steady. "Let's move. We can't waste any more time." They hurried to the location of the attacks, their hearts pounding in sync with their footsteps. As they arrived, the scene was chaotic. A small group of humans was surrounded by a larger group of soldiers, angry shouts and accusations flying through the air. The sight made Zafira's heart ache. "Traitors," one soldier yelled, pointing a finger at the humans. "You side with the aliens. You will pay for your betrayal." "No, we are not traitors," one of the humans shouted back, fear evident in his eyes. "We want peace." Zafira stepped forward, raising her hands to calm the crowd. "Please, everyone, listen to me." The shouting quieted slightly as they turned their attention to her. "I am Princess Zafira of the Nilorian people. I come in peace. These humans are not our enemies." Mark stood beside her, his presence reassuring. "We are fighting against the true enemy, the ones who want to see us destroy each other. We cannot let fear tear us apart." "But you attacked us," a voice cried from the crowd. "How can we trust you?" "We acted in defense," Zafira replied, her voice steady. "We were betrayed, just like you. But we must stand together against those who wish to harm us." The crowd remained tense, but Zafira could see the doubt starting to fade. "We can unite to uncover the truth behind these attacks. Together, we are stronger. Together, we can protect our homes." Just then, the loud roar of engines filled the air. The crowd turned to see several ships hovering in the sky, casting dark shadows on the ground. Fear rippled through the crowd, and panic set in. "Look out!" someone screamed, pointing at the ships. Zafira's heart raced. "Everyone, stay calm. We need to find shelter." Mark stepped forward, trying to organize the civilians. "We have to get you to safety. Follow us." As they moved, a sudden blast of energy shot down from the ships, striking the ground nearby. The explosion sent debris flying, and the crowd erupted into chaos. Zafira instinctively raised her shield, protecting those closest to her. "Get back," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "Stay close to me." The Nilorian soldiers rallied around her, forming a protective barrier as the ships hovered ominously above. "We can't let them do this," one soldier yelled, readying his weapon. "No, we can't retaliate without knowing who they are," Zafira shouted back. "We have to focus on protecting the civilians first." The ships began to descend, their landing gear extending as they prepared to touch down. The tension in the air was palpable as everyone awaited the unknown. As the ships landed, doors slid open, revealing dark figures clad in armor. "Step back," Mark yelled, pushing Zafira behind him. "We don't know what they want." As the figures emerged, Zafira's heart dropped. "No, it can't be." "Surprise, Princess." The dark figure from before stepped forward, a wicked grin on his face. "Did you really think we would let you ally with the humans? You are far too naive." The crowd gasped, realizing the threat was even closer than they had feared. Zafira felt anger surge within her. "You will not destroy us," she declared, stepping forward with newfound courage. "We will fight back." "Fight," he laughed mockingly. "You are already defeated. This war has only just begun." As tension hung thick in the air, Zafira and Mark exchanged a determined glance. They could not give up now. The fate of both their peoples rested on their shoulders. They had to stand together against this new threat, or they would lose everything they fought for. The final stand. The dark figures advanced, their armor glinting menacingly under the dim light. Zafira's heart raced as she recognized their leader, Fezaroth, the Nilorian traitor who had betrayed her and her people. Memories of the past flooded her mind, reminding her of how he had once been a trusted ally, only to turn against them. "Why are you doing this, Fezaroth?" Zafira shouted, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "What do you want from us?" Fezaroth laughed, a cold, cruel sound that sent chills down her spine. "You still don't understand, do you? This world has no place for weakness, and your alliance with the humans is a sign of weakness. I will not allow you to ruin everything I have worked for." Mark stepped forward, his fists clenched. "You're the weak one, Fezaroth. hiding behind your armor and using fear to control others. We will not let you win." Sci-Fi felt a surge of hope as she glanced at the humans around her. They stood firm, ready to defend themselves and their allies. She could see determination in their eyes, a shared resolve to fight for their future. "Humans and Nilorians stand together," Sci-Fi declared, raising her voice. "We will not let Sarath's betrayal tear us apart. This is our chance to show him the strength of our alliance." The crowd erupted in agreement, shouting in support. The soldiers gathered around, weapons drawn, ready to defend their newfound unity. Sarath's eyes narrowed. "Foolish princess, you think you can stand against me. You have no idea what I'm capable of." With a sudden wave of his hand, the soldiers behind him moved forward, weapons at the ready. The tension in the air was electric as both sides prepared for battle. Sci-Fi felt her heart pounding in her chest, but she refused to show fear. She raised her shield, ready to protect those she cared for. "Stay together," Mark shouted, positioning himself next to her. "We fight as one." As the first blast of energy lit up the sky, Sci-Fi activated her shield, deflecting the attack. The impact shook the ground beneath them, and she could hear the cries of civilians as chaos erupted once more. "Protect the civilians," she yelled, urging the soldiers forward. They moved as one, forming a defensive line against Sarath's forces. The humans and Nilorians fought side by side, their hearts united in a common cause. In the midst of the battle, Sci-Fi spotted Sarath moving through the chaos, trying to rally his troops. He was relentless, striking at anyone who stood in his way. Fueled by anger and betrayal, Sci-Fi pushed through the crowd, determined to confront him. "Sarath," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "This ends now." He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "You think you can stop me? You're just a naive princess." "I'm not naive," she shouted back, her confidence surging. "I know what you are. You are a coward hiding behind others. You have betrayed your own people, and you will not succeed." As their eyes locked, the air thickened with tension. Sci-Fi could see the anger boiling inside him, and she felt her heart race. She had to show him that unity was stronger than his betrayal. With a sudden burst of speed, Sarath lunged at her, but Sci-Fi was ready. She dodged to the side, using her agility to avoid his attack. "You will never win," she declared, summoning her power. With a wave of her hand, she unleashed a shockwave that knocked Sarath off balance. He stumbled back, momentarily stunned, and she seized the opportunity. The gathered soldiers cheered, feeling the tide of battle shift in their favor. Together, Sci-Fi yelled to her allies, her voice ringing clear. "We fight for our future, for peace." As the battle raged on, both sides pushed forward, the sound of clashing weapons echoing through the streets. Mark fought valiantly beside her, rallying the humans to defend their home. The Nilorian soldiers, inspired by Sci-Fi's bravery, fought with renewed vigor. Sarath regained his footing, fury etched on his face. "You think this will change anything?" he roared, sending a blast of energy toward the crowd. "I will destroy everything you hold dear." But Sci-Fi was ready. She raised her shield, channeling her energy to absorb the blast. The shield shimmered, and she felt the strength of her allies around her. They would not fall. They would stand together against the darkness. With a fierce cry, she pushed through the pain, summoning all her power. "We will not be broken," she shouted, and with a mighty effort, she unleashed a wave of energy that surged toward Sarath. Caught off guard, Sarath stumbled back as the energy enveloped him. The crowd gasped as he was thrown against a building, the impact shaking the ground. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield as everyone processed what had just happened. Sci-Fi stood tall, her heart racing, as the realization of their victory began to sink in. The tide had turned. Sarath was down, and his forces were faltering. "Now is our chance," Mark yelled, rallying the soldiers. "Push forward. We can end this now. As they pressed their advantage, Zafira felt a wave of hope wash over her. Together, they had fought against the darkness, and they had prevailed. She glanced at Mark, a smile breaking through her determination. "We can build a future," she said softly, her voice filled with conviction. "A future where humans and Nilorians stand together, united against any threat." As the last remnants of Saroth's forces retreated, the crowd erupted in cheers. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger than ever. Together, they would rebuild, and together, they would thrive.